Hello, everyone. My name is Alvin, and I'm a release engineer here at HashiCorp. Today, I'll be walking you through how to manage GitHub with Terraform. Feel free to reach out on Twitter if you have any questions or comments after this presentation. So how many people actually knew that the Terraform Providers org in GitHub is managed by Terraform code? Unless you work for the company, you probably don't know this because it's a private repo in our org. Today, we'll be going over two main things in Terraform: resources and providers. Resources are components of our infrastructure. These can be things like EC2 instances or VMs or containers. And providers understand the underlying API interactions between Terraform and different services. They also help to maintain the lifecycle of a resource, such as their CRUD operations. Terraform has a long list of supported providers. Supported providers are ones that we officially approve and are tested by us. Many people think, oh, Terraform, that's really just for infrastructure, right? Like GCP, AWS, or Azure. But in reality, we can also manage databases like InfluxDB, MySQL, or Postgres. Or we can manage VCS systems like Bitbucket, GitHub, or GitLab. As you can see, Terraform is extremely extensible beyond just managing infrastructure. Let's start off by having a look at how we can manage GitHub organization members with Terraform. This is Leo. He's the one that adds GitHub accounts for new hires and removes them when they leave. How many people know the Leo at your company? Maybe it's even yourself. He can map out the whole LDAP directory in his head and can assign you to the right groups or remove you from appropriate groups when you leave. But there's really only one Leo in the company. And Leo, in this case, which are your organization processes or single points of failure, doesn't scale very well. Until, of course, we have the ability to clone humans. So let's dive into a demo of how this works. Before we do this, let's check on the GitHub system status to make sure that GitHub is up. Otherwise, this demo is probably going to fail. Looks good. So here we have a repository of a bunch of Terraform configurations that we'll go through piece by piece as we go through this demo. To start off, we have a github.tf file, which will set up our GitHub provider. We have a provider block that takes in an API token that we'll use to connect to GitHub and an organization of which org we want to manage with this Terraform configuration. We have a few variables set here. The two that we'll be using in this first part of the demo are the two that I've described in the provider block. And we've set the GitHub organization as the terraform-github-demo GitHub org in the terraform.tf vars file. When first running Terraform, we run terraform init, which will pull down our provider or providers and set up our Terraform workspace. In this case, I've already pulled down the GitHub provider before, and it says that Terraform has been successfully initialized. Then we'll run terraform plan, where Terraform will tell us what changes it's going to go out and make. In this case, it's going to add myself as an org owner and my second account as an org member. These are just ones that we've set up here, where we have an org owners list and an org members list. So if we have a quick look at what the org looks like right now, it's only myself, just because I had to create this org in GitHub before I could use it in this demo. So now let's say that the plan looks good, and we'll run terraform apply. Terraform apply will tell us again what changes Terraform is planning on making. And if we confirm this with a yes, it'll go out and actually make those changes for us. So if we go in here, we'll look at the People tab, and we can see that there is one pending invitation for my second account. So I have my second account here logged in an incognito window. We see that it's been invited to the org, and bam, now we have users being managed by Terraform in the GitHub org. Great. So let's move on to GitHub Teams and managing GitHub Teams with Terraform. So how many people's GitHub Teams kind of look like this, right? Teams sprawl as small groupings of people need very specific access to repos over time. So let's say person A and person B are collaborating on a repo, and then person C joins the company, and person B and person C need to collaborate on another repo. So we've created these two distinct small GitHub teams in our org. But then let's say that the company gets reorged and person A, B, and C are all under the same manager or the same organization from then on, right? What happens in companies is that we don't clean up those smaller teams and we just let them be. So you end up with a sprawl of very small groupings of people that need very specific access to repos over time. So let's have a look at how we can manage GitHub Teams with Terraform configuration. Let's check on the GitHub repo. We see that we have no teams created. That's great. We'll go ahead and create one now. So in my Terraform configuration, I have this team-hashiconf configuration file that I just renamed with the .back extension. So what Terraform does is it'll go through a whole directory and it will actually use any configuration file as part of its configuration. So in this case, I just named it .back to ignore it so that we can demonstrate the users first in the previous demo. So now we'll rename it back to set it back in action. And we see that in here, we have two separate resources, one to create a GitHub team resource, and this team will be called team-hashiconf, and another resource that will actually attach members to the GitHub team that we've created. So in our terraform.tf-vars file, we can see that we've specified that team HashiConf has members and has a list of members. And for now, I've just added my secondary account to that member, to that team. So let's see what happens when we run Terraform apply. So notice how Terraform is not telling us that it needs to create the users anymore. These are just incremental changes to what it knows about or what is out there in the infrastructure already that it's managing. So Terraform is telling us that it will create a GitHub team resource, and it'll create the team that we want, and then it'll create a GitHub team membership resource and attach my second user as a member to that team ID. So when we confirm this, Terraform runs successfully. We'll go into here and we'll see that the team is actually managed by Terraform. Great, right? So now so far we've been able to create users with Terraform and then attach those users to particular teams in Terraform. So the final step is talking about managing GitHub repositories with Terraform. So this is your dumpster fire of tech debt flowing down the river of DevOps transformation in your company. If you don't stop the fire now at 100 repos, the fire will be much larger at 200 repos. So how can we standardize on repo configuration when there's a bunch of different settings you can set in the UI and everyone has access to create repos and pick and choose whatever setting or settings they want for that particular repo? So let's see how we can manage GitHub repositories with Terraform. Again, we'll look at the org itself. There aren't any repos here. We'll go through and look at the Terraform code. So in here, again, I have a repo-hashiconf Terraform configuration file that I've renamed so that we could ignore it for the first two parts of the demo. I'll move it back and let's have a look at what this does. So in here, we actually declare a module, and a module is just a grouping of reusable Terraform configuration that we can use for many different use cases. So if we want it to create another repo, we can use the same module and pass it different parameters and things like that. So if we look at the boiler repo module that we've specified here, it has many different resources, some of which we don't really care about, but are standardized configurations, let's say for our company or for our organization. So in here, we've defined a GitHub repository resource where we give it a name, description, etc. These are just your standard GitHub repository settings that you would see in the UI. We've also added branch restrictions. So every company or team probably says that they use GitFlow, but it's more or less an artisanal sort of GitFlow, right? There are teams that will merge code into a develop branch and then take that develop branch and merge it back into master, or some people will just merge their pull request directly into master. Some people have many different feature branches that they then merge into master. There are so many different ways to do GitFlow that having Terraform restrict what branches can get merged or what the status checks are that are required or how many pull request reviews are needed. This can help standardize that process so that when you move on to standardizing on your CI/CD, your DevOps or your release engineers won't have to bang their heads on, figuring out how team A uses Git versus team B. We can also set up a sample GitHub issue label, and this will be just called HashiConf issue. And we can also set up external collaborators or teams or attach teams to GitHub repos. In our variables file, we've defined all the different variables that we're using in this module. So if we go back to the repo config real quick, we can see that we don't use most of the boilerplate repo. We just add team HashiConf or as an admin team to our HashiConf repo that we're going to be creating. So in here, let's run Terraform apply one more time. Oops. We have to run Terraform init because it didn't know about the module yet because it hasn't actually registered it in the current workspace. So Terraform init, we can see that it's getting the boiler repo here and it's initializing that module. And when we run Terraform apply, it tells us that it does a bunch of things like creating the branch protection, creating a new issue label, creating a new repo, and adding the HashiConf team or the team ID of team HashiConf to the HashiConf repo as admin. So we'll confirm this, hit yes, let Terraform go out and do its thing. And we can see now that the apply has been completed. So let's look at what happens here. Well, let's look at it on my account. On here, we can see that there's the HashiConf repo that's been created. If we look at some of the settings, we can see that there's team HashiConf added to the repo with admin permissions. And if we look at the branches, we can see that there's a branch protection rule here for the master branch. And if we look at the issue labels, we can see that there's HashiConf issue here that we've created with Terraform. And this allows you to standardize your repository configs across your whole organization. And that's all I have for you. Go forth and Terraform. If you have any questions, feel free to tweet at me. My Twitter handle is on the very first slide. And thank you for listening.